What's up, guys? Continue the reading of the FBI's debriefing report on Bojinka plot suspect Abdul Hakim Murad. This is dated February 8th, 1995. And in this report, actually, Abdul Hakim Murad gives the FBI names that were familiar with the Department of Justice and also familiar with participants in the Bojinka plot, whether they were indirectly or directly involved. Uh, and as you can see here, Hashim Abd al-Aziz. Hashim Abd al-Aziz is the brother-in-law of Abdul Basit. Abdul Basit is the nom de guerre of Ramzi Youssef. He was born and grew up in Kuwait. He studied in Iman al-Shari Institute in Kuwait and Islamic University in Islamabad, Pakistan. He got married to his uncle's daughter several months ago, is now living in Iran. And this is his physical description. According to Murad, subject is not closely associated with Basit and neither familiar nor aware of the latter's involvements and activities. Subject can be traced to his father, who is presently working in a mosque in the city of Al-Amdi in Kuwait. Said mosque is specifically located within or close to the market area of said city. Plot to attack U.S. airlines and the Pope. This is one of the sections of the Bojinka plot itself. The plan to bomb several U.S. commercial aircraft and to conduct bombing operation during the Pope's visit in the Philippines were all Basit's idea. Said plan was already formulated prior to the arrival of Murad, who was one among the individuals who were supposed to participate in its execution. Basit has chosen the above-mentioned targets for the following reasons. 1. Bombing of U.S. commercial aircraft will result to great pressure against the U.S. government, whom Muslim extremists condemns for providing political, economic, and military support to Israel, and whom they blame for being instrumental in the killings of their Muslim brothers in Bosnia. 2. The conduct of bombing operation during the Pope's visit, which Basit plans to announce later as a handicraft of the Abu Sayyaf group, will result to international propaganda mileage for the latter. Abu Sayyaf is a militant group based in the Philippines. With regards to the plan of conducting bombing operation during the Pope's visit, Murad cannot ascertain that the conduct of said plan is an agreement between Basit and the Abu Sayyaf leader. Nevertheless, he opined that there was an agreement between the two since Basit have had a meeting with the Abu Sayyaf group during, let's go right to the page here, during Basit's first visit to the Philippines. And he presumes that Basit in maintaining constant communication with said group. The supposed bombing of the Pope is to be executed by Basit. He will be placing several pipe bombs along the Pope's route, which will be ignited by the use of a remote control device. Said pipe bombs and remote control device will be manufactured by Basit himself. Murad haven't seen said device yet and denied knowledge in assembling or making it. Sometime in the early part of December 1994, Basit, who was then in Manila, called up Murad in Karachi, Pakistan, and asked the latter to come to the Philippines to participate in the planned bombing of U.S. aircrafts and the Pope. Basit picked Murad to assist him, for he knew that the latter would have the same sentiment as him towards the United States. He knew that Murad will be very much willing to do things that will create great damage, embarrassment, and confusion to the U.S. government. Murad has a suspicion that Abdul Majid and Osama Asmuri are aware and may be directly involved in the aforementioned plan, since Majid have also undergone explosive training in Jalalabad, Afghanistan, while Asmuri is an Afghan war veteran, both of whom are mujahideen who are closely associated with Basit and have the same sentiments as the latter toward the United States. When Murad arrived in the Philippines on December 26, 1994, there were already several kinds of chemicals inside Basit's apartment. He suspects that Majid and Asmuri assisted Basit in procuring said chemicals. Nevertheless, he has accompanied Basit once in procuring other kinds of chemicals, and 4 pieces of Casio wristwatches, which will be used in manufacturing the bombs and as timing devices, respectively. They bought said chemicals in a chemical store situated somewhere in Quezon City, while the Casio wristwatches at Shangri-La Mall in Edsa. Basit is supposed to make 3 pipe bombs for the Pope, while Murad is supposed to make 2 nitroglycerin bombs to be planted inside actually 2 to be planted inside U.S. commercial aircrafts. However, their apartment was raided, and Murad was arrested while the bombs are still being manufactured. The chemicals and other materials inside the apartment were all confiscated and are now in the custody of the police. Escape route. The above-mentioned plan is supposed to be executed in the following sequence. Murad will board Air France going to Singapore, bringing with him 2 sets of nitroglycerin bombs. Upon arrival in Singapore, he will board flight number 2 of United Airlines going to Hong Kong, where he will fix the first bomb. Then he will board flight number 1 of the same airline going back to Singapore and fix the second bomb thereat. After which, he will fly to Pakistan, where he and Basit will be meeting each other at Embassy Hotel somewhere in Karachi. Residence. Put myself away for a minute. Murad does not know the exact places where Majid and Asmuri used to stay, but he is aware that the 2 are renting separate apartments close to Josepha apartment. Josepha apartment is where Ramzi Youssef and Abdul Hakim Murad were staying at. He alleged that prior to his arrival, Majid is staying with Basit at Josepha apartment, but the former transferred to another place when he arrived. The only residence which he and Basit had accompanied was Josepha apartment. It is the only place where they used to store chemicals and manufacture the bombs. Passports and documents. Murad alleges that he is using legitimate passports. However, he is aware that Basit and Asmiri have begun using false or forged passports. The group of Basit is not capable of forging or making false passports. They just purchase false passports in Peshawar, Pakistan, and use whatever they travel. Aliases. Murad is aware that Basit and Asmuri are using several aliases. The following are the aliases being used by the 2. For Abdul Basit, it's Adam Ali, Dr. Vijay, and Ramzi Youssef. Osama Asmuri, Wali Khan Amin Shah. Okay, so that's Wali Khan Amin Shah. I didn't know who Asmuri was. I never knew Khan's Nam Dagor. I didn't know he had one, but now we know. Actually, Wali Khan Amin Shah was actually recently released from prison, while Murad is doing life in prison. Murad denies any knowledge regarding past involvements of Basit, Majid, and Asmuri in any terrorist activities other than that of the World Trade Center bombing, which he knew was Basit's handicraft. Travel. Murad admitted that he had been traveling to different countries since he graduated from high school in 1989, same year I graduated, up to the present. He had been in the Philippines sometime in 1990 and has been a student of Continental Flying School in Pasay City. From November 1991 to July 1992, Abdul Hakim Murad was in the United States studying in different flight schools in New York, Texas, and North Carolina. It was in the United States when he earned his private pilot license. Before he left the United States in July of 1992, he conducted an ocular inspection of World Trade Center building, where he remembers that Basit once asked him to select a good bombing target in said country, and he's assuming that Basit will ask him regarding same when he comes back to the Middle East. After studying in the United States, Murad had been constantly traveling to the United Arab Emirates and Pakistan to follow up the conversion of his private pilot license to commercial pilot license and his application in Pakistani Airlines. All of Murad's travel during the past years were in connection with his studies and professional commitments. And every time he arrives at another place, he used to contact relatives and friends for assistance, if there is any. The only travel of Murad which we may consider to be connected with terrorist activity is his travel to the United States, since it was during said period when he conducted his ocular inspection of World Trade Center building and relayed the information regarding seeing to Basit when he came back to the Middle East. Now, this is something I never knew, that Abdul Hakim Murad was casing the World Trade Center before it was bombed. So that's really interesting. Murad or any of Basit's companions haven't visited nor attended any mosques during their stay in the Philippines. They only used to visit commercial and recreational facilities during that period. And that's not surprising because most Arab fundamentalists are not very religious, although they claim to be, but they're basically Hadith followers. A lot of these people, specifically people in Al Qaeda or the Islamic State, don't have much of a way of fundamental literacy. Most of these people are illiterate and they're easily misled by their local imams in these mosques. And most of the mosques that they attend are Wahhabi oriented. Murad claims funds. Murad claims that it was Basit who spends all of their expenses and he was not given monetary compensation for his participation in supposed execution of the planned terrorist activities. Nevertheless, Murad disclosed that the money being used by Basit came from a certain Amin, a Yemeni national who used to send money to Basit. He does not know how the money was being sent to Basit, but he opined that while Amin Shah is visiting Majid's bank account in sending money to Basit. Majid possessed an international ATM card and has a bank account at Hong Kong Bank in Makati. Murad does not know the exact account number of Majid and or how money was said in count. Notebook. The spiral notebook found in Joseph's apartment belongs to Murad. It contains the notes he had written when he was given explosive training by Basit sometime in August of 1994. Training. Murad claims that both Basit and Majid have undergone explosive training in Jalalabad, Pakistan, and that Asmurai is an Afghan war veteran. Furthermore, he disclosed that there are lots of groups or institutions in Afghanistan who openly provides explosive training for any Muslim individuals who is willing to, let me make myself disappear again, undergo such training. Now, Abdul Basit or Ramzi Youssef was in an Afghan camp, not an Al-Qaeda camp, but an Afghan camp that I had forgotten. I don't want to say it's Jihad Wall. I think it was something else, training camp that he learned explosives training. And it was in Afghanistan. It wasn't Pakistan. It was in Afghanistan that he went from the University of Swansea, which was in the United Kingdom. And then from there, he traveled to Afghanistan during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, where the communists were, the Mujahideen were fighting the communist regime under Rabbani in Afghanistan. Weapons. Not any of Basit's companions used any kinds of weapons. Abdul Basit Mahmoud Abdul Karim. Abdul Basit was known to Murad since childhood, since both of them are Pakistani nationals who were born in Kuwait. They both grew up, finished high school in Kuwait. They have been friends since childhood and just parted their ways when they took up college courses in different countries outside the Middle East. Nevertheless, they used to communicate with each other through telephones. Basit and Majid and Asmuri were when he was undergone explosive training in Jalalabad, Pakistan. Okay, so it was in Pakistan. I'm sorry. Jalalabad, Pakistan, but I don't know the name of the camp. I used to, and I used to know the trainer. And at this time, this is where Abdul Basit Karim or Ramzi Youssef met Ahmed Ajaj, who actually was recruited by Israel when he was arrested for money forgery. And he became an informant with his time during Hamas. Now, at that time, Ahmed Ajaj wasn't a religious fundamentalist. He had no religious training or anything like that. He played the part. Now, whether you want to say that he played the part in the Ramzi Youssef cell in New York that led to the bombing of the World Trade Center, I wouldn't say that's irrational. Now, the thing is that Ahmed Ajaj is doing 240 years in Colorado Supermax prison. I think he's there or he's in another federal institution. I know Ramzi Youssef is there. And I don't think Abdul Hakim Murad is there anymore. He used to be in Illinois where John Gotti was being imprisoned till John Gotti, I forgot the name of that, Marion, Illinois, Marion Federal Penitentiary. That's where Abdul Hakim Murad was, but I think he's in California. I don't know where, though. Basit, meetings. Basit hasn't conducted any official meeting with his companions during his stay in the Philippines, but he used to have casual meetings with any of them in different commercial, recreational, and residential places. Wali Khan Amid Shah. Murad denies knowledge on any information regarding Wali Khan, but he disclosed that the real name of the latter is Osama Asmurai, an Afghan war veteran. He is neither aware nor familiar with the involvements and activities of Wali Khan, since he only met the latter once on the day when he was arrested. Basit had introduced him to Wali Khan prior to his arrest. Vehicles. Basit and his companion did not use private vehicles during their stay in the Philippines. They used to ride taxi and other public conveyances whenever they travel within city limits. Other extremist groups. Murad has no knowledge whether Basit or any of his companions have contacts with other Islamic extremist groups, such as the, make myself disappear again, as the Egyptian Al-Gamma Islamiyah. Al-Gamma Islamiyah, if you've heard that before, its emir was, well, it's one of its emirs was the blind sheikh Amr Abdul Rahman. And this was considered one of the two main Egyptian fundamentalist groups, the other being Al-Jihad, which was later renamed to Egyptian Islamic Jihad. That's where Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri came from. And also Ibn Abd al-Mahab Faraj, which is where the idea of the near enemy, far enemy came from, not from Ayman al-Zawahiri, who later implemented that strategy into Al-Qaeda through the book Knights Under the Prophet's Banner. And the Algerian Armed Islamic Group. Nevertheless, by the way, the Armed Islamic Group is in Algeria. Nevertheless, he disclosed that Basit has friends and contacts in Egypt and Algeria, but he's not sure if these individuals are members or connected with the aforementioned terrorist groups. Notice Al-Qaeda is not in here. Now, I know that there's experts out there that, link Ramzi Youssef to Al-Qaeda, but to be technical about it, Ramzi Youssef never met Osama bin Laden, and one of the main requirements to joining Al-Qaeda is to swear loyalty, known as bayat, to Osama bin Laden. He never did that. In fact, Ramzi Youssef never even met Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri or Mohammed Atef, the military commander of Al-Qaeda. So now bin Laden has heard of Ramzi Youssef, but he never met. And bin Laden, this is from bin Laden's own words. The only Islamic extremist group which he knew to have contact with Basit is the Abu Sayyaf group. Basit has had meetings with the leader and members of the Abu Sayyaf in the early part of 1994. It was agreed upon during the said meeting that Basit would provide explosive training to the members of the group. Now, there's a story involving, there's a lot of legitimacy to the story, because also Richard Clark, the former National Security Counterterrorist Group director under the Clinton and Bush administrations, basically said that he saw reports of Ramzi Youssef, Abdul Basit, meeting with members of the Abu Sayyaf group. Now, there's an informant in the Abu Sayyaf, Edwin Angelines, who was working for the Philippines military and basically infiltrated this group to be a high level. In fact, he was one of its leaders, co-leaders of the group, and he basically was killing people. And people were like, they didn't know whether he was an actual military commander or a killer. In fact, he was both. But from Edward Angelines, he basically remembered that Ramzi Youssef had met with Terry Nichols, who he nicknamed the farmer, because Terry Nichols had a Filipino wife, and they went to Cebu City in the Philippines right before that. They learned about how to make a urea nitrate bomb in the same kind of truck that was used in the World Trade Center, which was a Yellow Rider truck, which was used in the Oklahoma City bombing. And the bombs that were made by Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh, was a urea nitrate bomb, the same bomb that was to use for the World Trade Center in '93. It was agreed upon during said meeting that Basit will provide explosive training to the members of the group. With regards to Islamic humanitarian relief organizations, Murad claims that he is not aware whether any of Basit's companions had contacts with individuals from these organizations, for he himself is not familiar with them. The Liberation Army. Murad disclosed that the Liberation Army is a fictitious organization conceptualized by Basit, and the latter is acknowledged himself as its leader. He opines that Basit is planning to organize his own international terrorist group, which he will be naming as Liberation Army. This was indicated by his constant travel to Egypt, Algeria, and some countries in Asia. He is beginning to establish his network. By the way, when they bombed the World Trade Center, one of the phone calls made was by I want to say it was Nadel Ayad, I think. I could be wrong. And one of them was by Ramzi Youssef, where he called in and said, this is a member of the Liberation Army. But there was no such thing as Liberation Army. It was conceptualized by Ramzi Youssef that he was going to make his own terrorist group. So that's another reason that Ramzi Youssef was not Al Qaeda either. So there you have it. That's the end of this report. And I'll be reading more. There's a couple more from the Philippines, own reports, and the FBI. I think there's 2 more from the FBI and about 2 from the Philippines. So stick with us, and guys, have a good night. Thank you for watching the video and taking an interest. See you in the next video.